Hi BookTube! My name is Sarah and welcome to the Bookish Knitter. Today I am coming to you with a tag video. I do not do a lot of tag videos, but I actually have a couple. I was tagged in this one and I've seen another one that looks really fun that I'm probably going to do next month. I know, like a tag a month or something, but you know, I do a lot of other things. But anyway, I was tagged in this one, and this is the GarbAugust Trashy Book tag. Steve Donahue tagged me, so thank you, Steve. He felt I had a lot to say on the subject because of course, my main genre that I read is romance, and as we are aware, romance and non-romance readers alike, that most romance novels are looked at by other people as just being generally trashy overall. That's just, the public perceives romance novels to be that genre, one of those genres. I think it's the best-selling genre in literature. Like, read any article on book selling and things like that. Like, they are the most sold books. However, they're also the most poo-pooed upon, if you will, as being trash, as being brain candy, as being, you know, fluffy or whatever. Throwaway books, essentially. So, Steve felt I had a lot to say on this subject, and I kind of do. So, I went over the questions already. There are 10 of them, well, 9 plus tag people. And I do have my my answers here. So this was originally created, of course, by Criminali. I will leave a link to his original tag video in the description box below. His is a lot of fun as well. So yeah, let's jump into this. So question number 1. Trashy books are often dismissed by the critics. What's a book which is regarded as trash, which you think has artistic value? So again, I talked about these very briefly in my GarbAugust TBR, but I'm going to say it again. So if romance books are considered to be like the trash of, you know, books in general, category romance is like extra trash. You know, even, and I said this already again in my GarbAugust video, my TBR video, that category romance, even within the romance reading community, is considered to be trash. So romance readers, a lot of them consider these books to be trash, and these are category romance. So your Harlequin, Mills and Boon romances, the ones that when you go to your big box store, your Walmart, or your grocery store, your pharmacy, wherever, you see these on the spinner racks. These are the books that are at the checkout line. They're the ones that the new books come out every month. They're considered to be throwaway in a way. That's what I think a lot of people think of them as. New ones come out every month, almost like editions in a comic series, if you will. And people just do not regard these as being any good. A category romance has never, to my understanding, and I mean, I'm setting the bar extremely low on this one, has never even been nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award. Never. And I mean, again, we're not looking for Pulitzer or Booker Prize winning lists here, people, but not even for a Goodreads Choice Award. And there are some that are absolutely fantastic. Like, I'm talking fantastic. The people who read these books love them. And new people who are reading them are like, why have I never read these before? These are really, really great. And I'm like, yeah, I've been saying that for 20 years. So yeah, I mean, you know, you look at not critical, and I'm not going to go by like highbrow critical lists of, but they're, even if you look at like New York Times best, you know, and again, it might be the nature of the fact that they only are out for a month, if you will. Like this book, I'll use this one because it's the most recent one that I have sitting in front of me, came out in February of 2021. So this was on the shelves for the month of February 2021. And then the physical edition of it, if there were any left on the shelves, they were gone. And they brought in the books for March, okay? Now, the difference is, though, is that I could understand that back in the day. Back in the day, I totally understood because, again, they were a monthly release, like a magazine, like a comic book, whatever. They had a very limited shelf life. And once that book was gone off the shelves, for you to be able to find it would have been very difficult. And I understand that. However, here comes my argument for, I don't know, since 2007? When was the Kindle developed? That's no longer the case because all of these books are now available digitally. You can buy them all on Kindle. So if this book, let's say, for example, this book was on the list for a Goodreads Choice Award for Best Romance or Romantic Suspense, or I don't think Romantic Suspense is a category. Don't even get me started on the books that they classify as romance for the Goodreads Choice Awards. But, you know, like let's say it was on there for romance and I saw it, think I might like to read that. It's no longer the case of this book was only on the shelf for the month of February and I can't find a copy now. No, I can very easily go on Amazon and I can get either a Kindle edition of it, or there are resellers who are selling physical editions that I can pick that up too if I want. So WTF, guys, WTF. There was a magazine years and years ago, and I don't know if it's still in publication. I know it's not in physical publication anymore. I think the magazine folded, unfortunately, and it was called Romantic Times, and I really enjoyed it. They had a lot of great articles with authors, and they also really highlighted category romance, and every single month they would actually break down almost like they had their staff, or I guess they had freelancers or what have you, who would read these books, and it was never one person reading all of them. It was a bunch of different people. And they would give reviews on these books. And it's like all of them, like every one that was published by Harlequin for that month. And I loved it. And I wish that they still did it. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. If I had the foresight, I would love to gather a group of people together and every month being like, these are all the new books coming out. Here's so many for you to review. Here's so many for you to review. Let's have at it and put it up on a website because these books need more love. So anyway, sorry, long rant on question number 1. I promise they won't all be like that. Number 2, critics often love books with extreme or challenging content. Which critically praised book did you think was trash? So I didn't think that this was necessarily trash. I don't think these are trash books at all. But I'm posing a question to all of you, essentially. In terms of, again, coming at this as a romance reader. So last month, in July, I read Persuasion by Jane Austen, which is considered to be a classic. It is taught in schools, like in university. Like if you're a university student studying English literature, you're probably reading an Austen novel. I don't know whether it's Persuasion or not, but guaranteed you are probably reading an Austen novel, okay? So I read that book. It's okay. It's fine. A little too much, too many characters. Way too many characters. But at the end of the day, what I took away from that book is it's a second chance romance. It's about 2 people who met, who were going to get married, and friends of hers persuaded her to leave him. And no, he's not good enough for you, blah, 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 blah. And then X number of years later, they meet back up again. And it's like, oh, those old feelings are still there. And circumstance happens and whatever, they end up getting back together. Everybody will not even argue this with me. Jane Austen is romance. She is I guess some people will call it proper romance or whatever the case may be. But that's the plot, basically, of Persuasion. And again, that book is taught in schools, in universities. If you are a classics student, you have probably read most of Austen's work, right? Here's my argument. Picking a random book off the top of my head, The Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams, which came out a couple of years ago. First book in the Bromance Club series. It's about a couple that was married, and her friends, after they found out that he was, maybe things were happening, her friends were like, is he really the right guy for you? Should you really? So they end up separating, and then later on, after he kind of gets his act together, they end up getting back together again. So the plot isn't that much different from Persuasion. The biggest difference is that, guess what, guys? The Bromance Book Club has sex in it. I know. Scandalous, right? So why is it that books with pretty much the same plot, one is taught in universities as a classic, and the other one is considered to be trash literature by a lot of people? Just saying. Just saying. Just something to think about. Again, and I don't have a problem with Austen. Classics are generally not for me. I read and absolutely loved Jane Eyre. I read and loved The Woman in White. I thought those were great, great books. And great books on the merit that they were great books. Not great books because they were classics. And I think that's my big thing with, why is it a classic? Why is that book considered... Again, let's go back to Persuasion. Why is that book considered to be a classic? What is it about that work that makes it it's not like it changed people's lives. It's a second chance romance. Again, inquiring minds want to know. And all of you Jane Austen purists out there, I'm sorry if I offended. I'm not knocking Jane Austen. I'm just making a point. And using Jane as the example. Question number 3, not everyone approves of trashy books. What's a book you wouldn't read in public? So there are not a lot of books that I wouldn't read in public. I would pretty much read any of these books. I would sit on the train and read this one, no qualms about it. The V.C. Anders book I've got over there, all of them. But there was a great meme that was going around a while ago saying, like, Kindle, allowing women to read trashy books in public since 2007 or something. That's why God invented the Kindle. If I'm reading something like, with a shapeshifter kind of a deal on the cover, no one needs to know that. If I get asked, what are you reading? War and Peace. Now scurry along. I'm enjoying my book. Number 4. Books about killer animals are almost always trashy. What animal would you least like to be attacked by? Not necessarily an animal. It's an insect, but spiders, roaches, somebody, was it Michael K. Vaughan, held up a copy of a book that he had bought, The Incredible Shrinking Man, I think, and he was really enamored with the cover, and I can see the artistic value in it, but it had a giant, creepy spider on it, and that's my line in the sand. No. So to answer your question, no, I've never seen Arachnophobia, nor do I ever have any interest of it. And now I have a feeling like there's something crawling up my leg. So we're going to stop talking about this now. All right. Number 5, trashy books often flourish in specific genres. What is your favorite trashy subgenre? I don't think I need to say it. It's romance. All day long. I love romance novels. There is just something so amazing about stories that have a happily ever after or a happy for now. Most of the time it's a happily ever after. That's kind of the point of a romance novel, is to get that happily ever after. Now, especially in the world that we're living in now, with everything that's been going on, pandemic, just the world in general, wars and all these other horrible things that are happening, I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting down and reading a story with a happily ever after. And some people may consider it trashy because it's not, Jane Austen, second chance romances, but it's still really enjoyable. And, it's gotten me through a lot of tough times. I talk about, and a lot of people thought it was kind of weird, like when I lost my dad in January of 2020, which still affects me very greatly. It was about a week after his death that I read a book by Sophie Kinsella, which was, what was it called? I Owe You One. And, a lot of people would consider that to be just a trashy chicklet, something fun to read kind of a book. That book has affected me so much. It was my number 1 read of 2020. One of those right book, right time kind of a scenario. So don't diminish anyone else for what they're reading, because you don't know their story. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know how that book might be helping them. And with I Owe You One, the main character had lost her father about 20 years earlier in the story. And even 20 years later, it still affected her. And it just made me realize that how people deal with grief. And as someone who had never gone through something like that before, it was extremely helpful. And I don't think that was Sophie Kinsella's. She just wanted to tell overall a fun story about a girl and a guy who kept doing each other favors, and then not those kind of favors, people, get your mind out of the gutter, but doing each other favors until they eventually fell in love with each other. And just the side plot was the fact that she had lost her dad and she was dealing with that grief still. And I don't think that was Sophie Kinsella's, her thought process when she was writing that book, but that's what I got out of it. So, anyway, sorry, random tangent, but just wanted to share that. Number 6, famous people love to milk their fans by publishing books. Which celebrity would you like to read a trashy novel by? So truth be told, guys, I don't follow celebrity culture anymore. I have no idea who's even famous anymore. I go on YouTube and they have these Access Hollywood and, Entertainment Tonight, and they're like, oh, so-and-so. And I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you and what is it that you do? You're famous for being famous? I don't know who you are. So to be honest, I don't know to answer this question. Excuse me. I'm filming this earlier in the morning and I haven't had coffee yet. And I am being joined by Bernard. He's over there. Famous person. You know who I'd love to read a biography or a memoir or something by? Steve Donahue. Speaking of people who tagged me, Steve, we need your memoirs. Because I just feel like those would be fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, right? Anyone else who watches them, do you agree? Let's see here. Number 7, Trashy Books have the best covers. Which book on your shelves has the trashiest cover? So I've got a couple of them here, but I just kind of wanted to show, like, a lot of these I don't consider trashy. A lot of people probably would. But I showed this one in my GarbAugust one. Like, why is there a monk? I gotta read this one. I gotta get to this one sooner rather than later. And this is actually a Kellogg and Carey story. Ghost Ship by Becky Stewart. This is the first love from Silhouette. So this is Silhouette did these YA category romances. But I love the Indiana Jones hat. That's a young Michael K. Vaughan. That's funny. Anyway, but these books are just classically fantastic. Look at that cover. This is a Harlequin super romance, Hawk's Lair by Marissa Carroll. And then this is a Love Sweat by Kay Hopper, The Touch of Max. Can you tell it's the 80s or 90s based on her hair? I mean, there's just something so inherently amazing about these. This one is this is an older one, 1973. I wasn't even born yet. Not for another 6 years. Isn't that gorgeous? But a lot of people would consider that to be a throw. I know Steve, I just saw a video that Steve did, within the last week or so. I'm about a week or two behind on BookTube. But he was making a comment about books with these overstyled pages or sprayed edges, that they're just necessarily going to be trashy, and all the old Harlequins had these, which is great. But there are 2 books on my shelf that immediately came to mind that are covers that I am not a fan of at all. Both for different reasons. So this first one we have is The Charmer by Lenora Carr. This is a Harlequin intrigue novel. What the F is happening in that cover? Is that girl dead? I don't know. Okay. It sounds like our female lead is blind after a car accident. And she's being heavenly protected by someone that's her guardian angel. It's just weird. The other one is a more recent book. And I don't want to get into the entire debate about guns. Guns are bad. My personal opinion. I don't need to have a discussion in the comments about this. This is my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion. Guns are meant to kill people. Full stop. Or animals. Full stop. That's what they were created for, developed for, whatever. Now, I do understand there are specific instances where guns are needed. And there are certain places where it's much more prevalent. A lot of the Western U.S., Texas, and I read a lot of the Harlequin intrigue books. And a lot of the characters carry guns. And you see a lot of guns on covers. But for some reason, this cover just doesn't sit well with me. And I don't know if you can tell the reason why. She is very heavily pregnant, and that just looks trashy to me. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to judge anyone else. That's not what I'm saying. But for my upbringing, and okay, let me rephrase that. For the life that I live, and I have never been exposed to a gun. I have never had reason to be exposed to a gun. Guns are what are carried by the police and the military. That's who uses them. That's who needs to use them. Everyone else does not need them, in my opinion. But again, I absolutely understand that there are certain places where it is much more prevalent. People who live in more rural communities might need them for protection from animals or what have you. And I get it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that for me, for what I know in my life, that just feels trashy to me. It does. I'm sorry. And I'm not a fan of this cover. If she wasn't pregnant, it wouldn't bother me as I know I'm probably sounding like a complete hypocrite of some kind. I don't know. Or maybe just a bitch. I don't know. But I'm just not a fan. I'm sorry. So that feels like a trashy cover to me. It's definitely a the kind of cover that makes you kind of go, wait a minute, what? You know, like I want to read this. Don't get me wrong. I really want to read this one. Star-crossed lovers, danger awaits them both. After her father's murder, pregnant Lila dreads facing Deputy Harlan, her child's secret father, who left her heartbroken. Though she still wants him, Lila knows his professional ambition won't let him associate with the moonshiner's daughter. But when a killer targets Lila, Harlan becomes more than her protector. Now they must uncover old family secrets or pay the ultimate price. So again, I mean, it goes with the story. But I would have picked a different cover. Maybe having him on the cover as well, holding the weapon. I've seen that a lot. You know, like, he's protecting her kind of an idea. But, I mean, I guess she's kind of badass, right? But I don't know. Anyway, I'm overanalyzing. I just don't want to offend anybody, and I'm sorry if I did, you know, but that's just my personal opinion. Number 8, trashy books are often contain adult themes. What's a book you read before you were old enough to? I can tell you that when I was much younger, I used to grab the old Harlequin silhouette books, whatever, Love Sweat books. My aunt would read a lot of them. She's the one who kind of got me into reading them originally. And I wouldn't read them cover to cover, but I would flip through looking for the good parts, essentially. And so that I can definitely say. The V.C. Andrews books I probably read well before I should have. I was probably 13 or 14 when I was reading those. And as well, Anne Rice. I read The Witching Hour when I was in 9th grade, first year of high school. I think I read The Witching Hour, so I was about 14. So that wasn't, terribly young, but it wasn't exactly, I wasn't the target audience, let's put it that way. Number 9, if you were a character in a shifter romance, what creature would you want you or your partner to shift into? I'm going to pass on that one because I don't read shifter books. Sorry, Ollie. I don't know how to answer that. I never understood the appeal of shifter. But I guess, maybe vampire? Vampire shifter? I think mostly for the fact that, and I've talked about this before, that vampire, ultimately, to be bitten by a vampire, it would be a bad thing, but you'd have to be by yourself. So for an introvert like me, that sounds great. You'd need to get the whole blood thing, but I would work that out. They're synthetic. I did read the Sookie Stackhouse series, but the fact that you'd be living forever, think of all the books I could read. Anyway, guys, that's it. That's it for this tag. I hope you enjoyed my answers. I know it was a little all over the place. I kind of literally just sat down and decided to do this. I did have some of the answers thought out ahead of time, but most of them were off the cuff. Again, I hope I didn't offend anybody who likes guns and Jane Austen. Not my intention at all, my friends. Not my intention at all. And until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.